This will make you roll your eyes, and you know what? Perhaps that's what you can always expect from The View, because this next clip about actor Jonathan Roumie, who portrays Jesus Christ in The Chosen, was the most frustrating display of the show's host twisting Jesus' portrayal in the series as some kind of modern social justice warrior. Just take a look for yourself at what they said, as well as the segment from the series they chose to play, because there's so much more I need to tell you about.
Obsession with what is clean and unclean goes farther than God intended, and does no good for anybody but yourself.
We tithe everything so the poor can benefit, down to the smallest plants grown in our gardens.
And to that I say, woe to you Pharisees! You tithe mint and dill and cumin, measuring carefully the last speck, while neglecting what is actually important of the law: justice and mercy and faithfulness. You blind guides, straining out an act while swallowing a camel. Look at these people. What have you done to help them?
Please welcome Jonathan Roumie.
Hi, guys. Wow.
I feel like I should bless myself. I feel like doing this.
I've got some water here.
He's got
I
some
can
water.
help the water if you want. I got some water right
We were just saying, at least you're not a blonde, blue-eyed Jesus, finally.
What? That's what Joy Behar chose to lead with? For what reason, even for a story as great as this, gets reduced to petty culture wars when you're on The View? Let me give you a broader perspective. Anyone that understands the anthropological history of the Middle East 2,000 years ago, as well as Christian theology itself, knows the physical characteristics and appearance of Jesus Christ have always been a matter of contention and debate. For instance, that Jesus necessarily had brown hair or eyes is also as little rooted in verifiable fact as the idea that he had other physical traits, and here's the historical reason for that. The Bible does not have a detailed description of what Jesus Christ looked like, and the second commandment forbids making graven images of him to avoid people worshiping God through an idol. That means that for hundreds of years after his life, we don't find reliable pictures, portraits, or statues of him that could point to the specific details of what Jesus Christ actually looked like. Now, while it may be true that Jesus had dark hair and dark eyes given the people that he came from, no one can say it with complete conviction, especially when you're speaking about someone with such religious and historical significance. But the truth is, this criticism is only a layer deep. The View had other bad takes that I need to pick apart, because their reading of the Jesus story through the lens of a modern left just leaves a bad taste to begin with. Take a look at what Sonny Hostin had said.
I think what was fascinating to me is growing up, I always saw the blonde-haired, blue-eyed Jesus, right? And now I go to a Black Catholic church and Jesus is brown. And I think it seems that you took such great pains to do that in this and to portray him as he probably likely was, since this was the Middle East, right? Most people don't know that. And he's also Jewish. So the show explores that, the way Judaism is woven into the story in such a beautiful way. Your cast is extremely diverse. Was that important to you and to your director, Dallas Jenkins, when this was coming together? Was that intentional?
Yeah, absolutely. So Dallas is the creator of the show. We have two other writers in addition to Dallas, and they wanted to bring to the screen the most authentic portrayal of Jesus and his disciples in this story, and its roots and its Jewishness and the diversity of the people and the colors and everybody that would have lived in these next to these seafaring towns. They were port cities.
Did I hear this correctly? A diverse cast. Maybe she needs to make her mind up about whether we need historical accuracy or whether some modern notion of diversity is more important. We're literally talking about the Middle East of 2,000 years ago, and while it's understandable for someone to want to adapt old stories to new audiences, it doesn't mean mangling and twisting the greatest story ever told into some modern race-tinted social justice lens. That's not what Jesus would have wanted either. If you try to look at the character of Jesus from the more cultural and social lens on history, you'll actually see something similar happen to him that human societies have done with other important figures. It's that different cultures adopt these figures and try to relate to them by making them appear closer to their own population. Throughout history, that has been a large part of how religion is spread in the first place, because both their ideas and appearance would evolve and overlap with the host culture until they became a part of it over generations. If you take the African continent, the religious Christian community in Ethiopia have created the Ethiopian Orthodox Christian art. It is paintings like this where Jesus Christ is depicted as healing a blind man while in a darker skin tone, and physical features that resemble closer to the native population. Then in China, there's portraits like the Madonna scroll depicting the Virgin Mary and Jesus Christ, in more Asian-looking features dating back nearly 5 centuries ago. And of course, Europeans did something similar during the Renaissance with a painting like the Last Supper that a European would feel affinity to. Clearly, there's a more subtle and intelligent reading of history that someone on The View could give, and was proven right when Joy Behar said this next.
In the clip that we saw earlier, which shows Jesus speaking up for marginalized people, the poor, etc., which is the Jesus that we love. Not everyone interprets that message the same way these days. Religion in this country even seems weaponized at times. As a man of deep faith, which you obviously are, does that frustrate you at all?
You know, in that clip, we see Jesus basically taking to task the Pharisees that have essentially perverted the law or taken the faith and made it about the specificity in the letters of the law versus the heart of the law versus the community. You know, they were taking great pains to follow the law at the expense of the followers. And there was injustice in that. And, you know, anytime you see injustice taking place, Jesus is not going to be happy about that.
What a convenient thing to do for someone like Joy to use half the teachings of religion to try and bolster her worldview, while disregarding the convenient other half. As much as someone might try to make Jesus Christ's teachings fit a modern political lens, they simply do not. Those teachings form the foundation of something that's much grander and far above the concept of individualism versus collectivism that we have today. And it's just sad when something like this happens, where people would ride on the shoulders of ideas to make their point and get off the moment that it's not politically convenient. There have been plenty of examples of The View doing the exact same thing, especially against more outwardly religious and political figures they don't like. For example, Speaker Mike Johnson, Whoopi Goldberg herself, has even used religion to try and justify her more radical policies on the trans debate around children. But for once on the panel, it was refreshing to hear Jonathan Roumie offer a deeper meaning of what it meant for him being a person of faith.
So I moved to LA, and for 8 years, I didn't have the safety of the job that I left in New York. It's a different unions and all sorts of complications to do the same thing in LA, but that's not what I was going to LA for. So I had to do all these other jobs, these side jobs. I drove rideshare, I worked in catering, all these things that I'd never done before, and gotten to the point where I was broke, I was out of money, I was out of food, I was out of even government assistance for food, and the only thing I hadn't done at that point was the thing that was left to do, which was to get on my knees and surrender my entire life and my career and everything that I had up to that point over to God, because there wasn't anything I realized I could do on my own.
That's what this segment should have felt like from the start, instead of devolving into the same political back and forth that we've all grown tired of. But it's still interesting to see how the panelists at The View prove themselves incapable of offering any deeper thought on issues, no matter if they're political, social, or religious. Let me know in the comments what you thought about this exchange, and share this clip with your friends and family that need to see it. There's certainly no doubt that segments like this just tell you how you can't trust most of the legacy media that are less interested in genuine dialogue and more interested in protecting their image and feeding their audience what it wants.